Karen Lovely here, the power of self-evolution. And quite honestly, this morning, I am tired of evolving. It's exhausting me. Oh my God. All right, so this morning I'm here with a former client and now dear friend, Dan. And Dan and I this morning are going to have a conversation. I don't know what it looks like, where it's going to go, but there's this, for me personally, I got this heavy, like, blah energy. And I just feel like, okay. So, I guess the sense I'm getting, when I was on the swim team, I swam for junior college in Orange County, California, and every freaking morning, yet I wanted to be on the swim team, but I hated going to practice. I absolutely could not stand it. We trained twice a day, and then I hadn't swum in years, right? And I go back to swim on a swim team, and I was just a kid when I swam, right? So I don't know, that was like 8 years, 9 years before, I'd swum as a kid, and then I went back to swim on a state championship junior college swim team. And what was I thinking? Although I had been training, I was cycling, I was a fitness trainer working in Newport Beach, and I was cycling and running, so I figured, I could swim, which is about a triathlon, really. But the point is, I hated training, but I wanted to win. I was focused on being on a winning team and being part of the winning team, and I wanted to win for myself. I wanted to win within myself. I wanted to feel this sense of I was accomplishing something, and yet the training, I hear background noise, Dan.
Yeah, I know. That's the pit. I don't know what he's doing.
Oh, how cute, the cat. All right. Oh, that's Squeaky's. Okay, good. Yeah, what is he? He sounds like he's opening up a cabinet. Hey, Squeakers, zip it. We're recording a podcast. All right, so this is in real life podcasting, reality podcasting, and those are the things we have to deal with. So I might hear a dog barking on my end and blah, 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 but that's adorable. Well, good, Dan. It's nice to know it's not you, it's Squeakers. So,
okay, I handled it.
Okay, so I'm just saying, like, really, I hated going to practice, but I wanted to win. But there ain't no winning if you don't train, right? You see this, Dan? And that's how I feel this morning, the exact same way. Like, I would wake up, so we had to get in the pool at like 7 in the morning. And it was freezing some days where you could see the smoke coming off the pool. And I weighed all of 100 pounds or something with zero body fat. And I was freezing like every single morning. And I was like, what was I thinking? I would get there going, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. I would sit there and pray. Like, oh my God, help me get through this. Like, it was torture. And then I don't even know how I kept going, quite honestly. And like, okay, so this isn't torture this morning, but it's feeling pretty close of, oh my gosh, I am so tired of training for greatness, training for a full life, training to have it all. I'm tired of it. Right. Damn.
Yeah, and I would be tired of the chlorine smell in the pool too.
Yeah. Oh, it's so funny because I had my same long, gorgeous black hair, but I had blonde hair, like around my face. It was literally bleached from the chlorine. Yeah. So it was brown, red, blonde, not a lot of it, but you could see definitely quite a few hairs. Yeah, it was horrible, the chlorine, right? Training twice a day, 7 in the morning, and then I think 3 in the afternoon, and 3 or 4, and then we did weights 3 times a week. It was a lot, and then the chlorine is just gross.
Oh, and you did weights also 3 times a week.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, my God, and I complained about that too. I was like, oh, I can't do this. And I remember distinctly, oh, I don't want to do these squats. Like we had to lean up against the wall and just sit in this squat position. And I was like, oh God, somebody shoot me.
You know, that's not fun. That's not fun.
I know. Story of my life. I remember even as a kid when I was swimming, I was really great the first couple of years because I didn't care. And I was like winning. I was like beating swimmers that had been swimming their whole life. And then when it got to the point where people had expectations of me, that I was expected to swim, and then it went rogue. And I just didn't want to do it. But I remember one year I got the biggest complainer. Right? There was the awards. And they're like, and biggest complainer, and I won that award.
Yeah.
You know?
Did they create that award specifically after you started swimming, or was it already there?
No, you know what? I think they created it. I was so pathetic. But here's the thing. Like, I'm thinking, why did I get that? You know? And why didn't they just, like, kick me off the team? Well, I think you couldn't do that. It was because I had a winning reputation. You see this? But then I hated it. I resented it. I didn't want to train anymore. And swimming was not my first thing. I just did it because the rest of my siblings were doing it. My mom wanted us all to be swimming.
Yeah.
Right? And I just happened to have this natural athletic ability and a lot of talent, but I resented it because it wasn't in my heart and I wasn't passionate about it, and nobody was listening, and I didn't have a voice. So this is really interesting. This is great. Yeah, they made up, I think they did. I don't know, but I'm almost positive they made up that award. I won it fair and square. You know, and I was like, F you. Right? So I had to complain about that. I had to complain about winning the damn award. But here's the thing. Complaining is just symptomatic of not having a voice and having people listen and getting what I really wanted. And yet I had I wanted to be dancing and riding horses. And nobody was listening to that. My mother was not listening. And then I don't know that I could fully express that. And so I couldn't express it because I'm just a kid. And I expected her to get it, and nobody got it. Do you understand? I was so angry and resentful. So the only thing I could do was the passive-aggressive complaining thing. And that's what that's about. Which is so eye-opening. I mean, this is so great to recall that because as a kid, I trained really hard to be a great complainer. And cut to right today. Complaining. And I'm not going to lie, I complain a lot. And it's why. Because, right, underneath it, something's not tracking for me. Dots are not being connected. And there's a gap. I'm in this point in my own mind, in my head, and in my heart where I can't bridge the gap. Like something's missing. I have blind spots. And so the complaining is just symptomatic of not connecting the dots. Does that make sense, Dan?
Yeah, it does. And, you know, what you said is so completely on spot. Is you have blind spots. Everybody has blind spots about what it is that's motivating them, what they're really thinking underneath and what the unconscious is telling them. And we all have blind spots. And I thought it was interesting, really good, the way you started out, saying, I'm so tired of evolving. I like that. That's great. I mean, that made, I chuckled. I couldn't help that. I spontaneously chuckled when I heard that because I feel the same way. And it's always that way to some extent, except those rare times when everything does seem to line up, and I don't feel constrained and conflicted inside.
Yeah, but so when my God, this is like every other day, really. I get up and I don't want to quote unquote go to practice. I don't want to get in the pool, so to speak. Oh, And really, I don't want to get up on the horse and, hit the jumps, because I really started my first love and passion and talent, like talk about a talented athlete, is horseback riding, being an equestrian. And that was started at 7 years old. And yet, ironically, I did train on my own. My mother never had to say, it's time for you to go to your horseback riding lesson. I did it on my own, like clockwork, every week. I got the check from my mom, and I went on, and I had to walk over to the giant estate next door to take my lessons. Isn't that interesting? I did it, no problem, never complained once. Never. Now, isn't that interesting? I get to swimming, I can't stand it, and I complained all the time. And yet I never complained for almost 5 years about horseback riding. What does that tell you? Huh. Wow. That is eye-opening right there. Right? Now, I see when it comes to elevating consciousness and evolving the self, most of the time it's not fun because there's no wonderful horse to ride. You see? Like, it's like, oh my God, where are the prizes? Where's the good stuff in this? And whenever it seems daunting and we're not getting enough results or rewards, then going to practice doesn't occur as fun, and it's hard to stay inspired and motivated. You see? And evolving, becoming more conscious, I'm not going to lie, is not nearly as fun as riding horses. Not even close. Like, they're not even in the same basket, right? If we think about that, Dan, is that what seems better, riding a horse or training your brain for greatness? Dan, what would you choose?
Well, my choice might be different. I mean, it's
all right, but put your
right?
favorite thing, like racing cars or training your brain.
Oh yeah, driving, and doing precision driving and time trials and even door-to-door racing. That's where I would enjoy.
Well,
training my brain's not generally going to give any feeling of being in the zone or giving this wonderful high of being able to coordinate and making that race car look like it's in a dance.
Yeah.
No, that training the brain is not that. There's generally no immediate payoff. It takes effort protracted over lifetime.
Yeah, and so, wow, so many parallels here. I could even feel the direct correlation to not wanting to swim, right? But she kept showing up to practice because I didn't want to regret not swimming. That's huge. In other words, I call that the pain principle. It was more painful for me to feel the loss of not swimming than it was to show up to practice, which seemed so painful. So I had to weigh the pain of it. Yeah, that's deep. And that's similar to Serena Williams. I just watched one of her videos and she said something so profound. She said, I trained every day for 30 years. 30 years, like, whoa, every day. She didn't, and then she said something like, it's not that I needed to win. I just couldn't live with myself to lose. And that's the same thing I'm saying. And for me, it showed up as, Karen, how many opportunities do you have to go swim again on a team and can jump right in because you've been training as a runner and a cyclist? So here's your chance. And I just couldn't miss that opportunity. I did not want to live with regret of, oh, you should have went onto the swim team. So because of that, I was able to practice twice a day and do something that I wasn't truly passionate about, but what I was passionate about was training. Interestingly enough, the irony, the contradiction, is what I was passionate about was knowing I could do it, knowing I could swim again after 8-9 years and actually be okay. Now, was I a winning swimmer? No, not at all. I was in the slowest lane. But then again, I hadn't swum, and I didn't even swim that many years as a kid. I think I swam 2 or 3 years as a kid. And then I go back to get on I mean, they won year after year state championships for junior college. That's pretty impressive. But I know it was my own mind that needed to do this for myself. That's all that really matters, is I did it for myself, my soul, my spirit. And so what I do know is the same thing applies here, Dan, is now I don't want to train every day for greatness. That's really what I'm doing now in my mind, in my heart, to really have this, again, hashtag self-freedom, to feel free within myself. And what I mean by that is never, ever, ever being attached to any circumstance or external condition as ever defining me as being worthy or not. That's what I feel is free. In other words, circumstances irrelevant, external conditions irrelevant, meaning money in the bank, no money in the bank. In a relationship with the man of my dreams, not in the relationship with my man of the dreams. Perfect fit body, not perfect fit body. Having my dream car, not having my dream car. Like anything, a dream career, no dream career. Those are all circumstances. None of it defines me. And when we can go through life going, could care less either way, knowing it doesn't define me, that to me is freedom. Not being at the effect of our feelings, our thoughts, and our circumstances. That to me is freedom. Dan, what's your take on freedom?
Well, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
For me, it's and I have felt that way. It's being in a space of I don't have anything in the way. I'm feeling emotionally no conflicts, and I don't have any conflicts in my thoughts. Yeah. It's all really lining up. Now, that usually doesn't last very long.
No, but when it does, that's the quick fix and the high we're essentially trying to go for.
That's right.
Right. And me, my first drug of choice was overachievement and perfectionism. They kind of go hand in hand. Those are, it seems like two drugs, but it was just like overachieving perfectly. And that for me was a high, which drove me to go back to swimming after years. Is because I still had that need to prove something to myself. I still needed to show that I was worthy at some level and good enough through another yet accomplishment, especially one taking on an accomplishment or an endeavor that I hadn't done in years, right? Almost a decade. So now it's like, why, like Olympic athletes, why in their right mind would they keep training, right? You get 4 years and you miss the boat. You get another 4 years. You miss the boat. I mean, come on. But then when you get there, if you ever do, is priceless. There's no way you could ever, measure that. It's so phenomenal and extraordinary. And I have to think the same thing. Now, what's interesting is this whole ability to weigh the pros and cons, and again, to weigh the pain principle. See, now there's the pain of me stopping and not continuing elevating my consciousness. There's a pain versus the pain of continuing and training. Which pain is greater? And the days that I wake up going, ugh, it feels like the pain is greater to keep going. Whoa. And that's the whole depression suicide thing, which I can talk about. The pain is greater. So it occurs for me, or appears, or feels like. That makes sense, Dan?
Sure.
Yeah.
Or it does.
Until I then do this work and go, wait a minute, what's really going on? It's based on my perceptions. It feels like that because, and I know what it is that I don't see any cute furry horse. I don't see any prizes, and I don't see any results. At least when you're horseback riding, you're training, and you do really badly, you could at least go, well, at least I have my horse. And horses are so mystical and magical, you're like, oh, so that's worth it. Like, I can feel that for me. That's what I think. Okay, so that was a bad ride. Oh, I missed a couple jumps in practice. But then you're like, oh, but I love my horsey Midnight. That was my first horse I ever rode. His name is Midnight. He's so cute. Right? So you're like, oh, okay, so this is why it's worth it to keep going. But when you're like training and you see no results for 4 years, you're like, what? And then you get injured. You're like, what? No wonder it seems daunting. No wonder we want to quit. Is because we can't touch, taste, smell, feel the prize. And that's when consciousness then counts, and why it is so worth it that I, do a reality check and go back to everything I've been doing and training for and go, wait a minute, all right, what was I thinking? Time to reframe my perceptions, because if I really stop and contemplate the pros and cons, I'd be a fool and an idiot to stop training, because the rewards are so magnificent that I just couldn't see because of my blind spots. I can't get in touch with my God. Doing this training not only saved my life, but attracted my soul purpose. SOLE purpose, SOUL purpose. My divine calling, my divine purpose came to me because of this work and this training. So it's only when I pencil it out, map it out, and look again and get back in touch with the blind spots that are no longer blind to me, but very real, then I can say, oh, whoopsie, made a mistake. Okay, and it's okay to not want to train. It's okay. The best way to do that is acknowledge that I don't want to train. That's why you laughed, Dan, because the first thing I said was, ugh, I'm over it. So when we can acknowledge that, okay, today we just don't feel like going to practice.
Yeah, you said, ugh.
Yeah.
I'm tired of evolving.
It's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm not tired of evolving. I'm tired of training to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired of being, are you ready? A word you brought up earlier, before we started the podcast. I'm tired of being responsible for my life and myself.
Yeah.
Right? And when we talk about responsible, it's a distinction, or it's a concept, if you will, or a construct of within the realm of consciousness and transformation. You see? And when we say responsible, we're not talking like, oh, you're responsible, it's your fault. Oh, you're responsible, pay your bills and take the dog for a walk, and you're responsible. Like that heaviness from when I was a child, I was overly responsible because it's called in psychology parentification. I became the parent as the child because my parents were arrested in their emotional, spiritual development. And I knew this at some level. And I needed to be the responsible one and try to fix it. And so now I have all these negative associations with responsibility. But when I started training in transformation, there was a different take on responsibility that I really love now. And it took me forever to get this. It seemed like forever. Is this notion, is it really being responsible? That might not be the word. I really reframed it to being willing to do the work to care for and nurture my creations. That's what it is for me. The distinction of responsibility is to step up and say, wait a minute, if my life isn't working, I'm responsible for that, in terms of then there's something within myself that's not tracking, and therefore I am not, based on the law of attraction, able to manifest or attract the very things I know I can attract through the power of creating it in my mind and heart. So what do you think about that, Dan?
Well, that sounds like what transformation is for me, essentially, is what you said.
Yeah.
It's an act of creation, an ongoing act of creation. And so I'm seeing the context here is crucial for what responsibility is. It's really being the source of creating how your life looks, what it's made of, and how you are, what context you have everything in. And it also means, being your word. And the hardest thing in the world for me is to be my word to me.
Okay, when you say that, let's explain that. So you're talking about this integrity, self-integrity. Is, so simply said, is following through and following up with what you say you want to do or have or be.
And if you don't, then speaking to that accurately and taking ownership of when you don't do what you say you're going to do, or what you are planning. Yeah,
it's really following through. That's all that is.
Following through on everything.
Yeah. And so what I really believe that to have the highest level of integrity and to follow through and back up your declarations or your statements. That's what that is, right? To back it up with objective evidence. That's difficult to do when there are blind spots that stop us from being integrous, to actually continue to follow up and follow through, right? To fruition.
That's right. That's right.
And it's the blind spots of fear, the blind spots of feeling insecure, unworthy, undeserving that get in the way of that. And then underneath integrity is really, for me, responsibility. And again, responsibility is taking on that I am the source of what is and what isn't. I firmly believe that. Now, I'm not saying, I'm God. No. Whether you believe in God or I believe in the divine universe, right? A higher power, supernatural power outside of myself. But I also possess the ability to be supernatural. A term I heard by one of my favorite neuroscientists is Dr. Joe Dispenza was supernatural geniuses. Now, I've always used the word genius, and then I started following him, and he uses the same word, genius, and I love that. But this ability, like this supernatural power outside of ourselves, I believe in that. But what I do know is that time and time again, I have had the ability to set in my mind consciously something I want to create, have, do, or be in my life, and I create it over and over and over again to objective reality, into fruition, into tangible, objective reality. It's touchable. You can taste, touch, smell, hear, feel. This morning I got out, sat on my deck, which I rarely do, and I'm now just doing this after years, drinking my coffee, And I was just looking at my miniature horse, my 2 Arabian mares, and then my donkey. And he had been up in the stall because we have to doctor him. He has a rash, and so he was unhappy yesterday. So my ranch hand says, he's not eating. And I said, you know what? He's depressed. He's sad. Put him out in the pasture with the other animals. And sure enough, there he is walking around, and I even saw him chewing something. He was depressed. But the point is, I was sitting there looking at my creations. In other words, I set out to have these things, my greatest passion, horses, and there they are in front of me in my pasture walking around. This is what I'm capable of creating over and over and over again. And that's the benefit of being self-responsible, of being the source of my creations and understanding how to do this at will, consciously. I've done it my whole life unconsciously. It's taken much longer, but how about being able to do it consciously, saying something and it appearing and getting the results within a week, within days, a week, a month? Wouldn't that be wonderful? But when it seems too painful for me and I don't want to train is because I have the perception that I don't see any prizes, rewards. I don't see any fun in it, and I don't see where the playtime is. And that's where it goes rogue. And that's when I start complaining. Because what I'm really saying is, oh my gosh, this isn't fun for me. And where are the results and the rewards? And that's why when I wake up, I don't want to go to practice. For what? The next thing that's triggered in my head is, for what? It seems pointless. And then I get extremely cynical about it. And this sense of resignation sets in where, well, why bother when there's no fun or play? There's nothing good here. I don't see any prizes.
And then you get tired of evolving.
Yes. And then boom, I don't want to go to practice. I don't want to train. If there's no gold medal every day in training, then I don't like it. But that's a child speaking, right? That's the little girl that didn't have a voice speaking. That's the little girl who, I actually started swimming around 11 or 12 late. And I killed it. I mean, I was so talented as a swimmer, because I was undefeated on the intramural YMCA team, and I had just started swimming. It was crazy, but it was because I was able to ride horses before that. 7 to 12, I rode horses. But here's the thing we got to know: I quit riding horses because I had failed in one of my first shows. My God, I had trained like an Olympian. I had trained for 4 years, just riding. It was fun. There were no competitions. And then finally I was ready to go in my first hunter jumper show. And I failed because I couldn't get my horse to get over one jump, not even one. I defaulted. I was dismissed, and I felt like such an epic failure in retrospect, that I made up excuses and quit the very passion, quit the very thing that I love so much. I quit training because I felt so horrific and so ashamed and so pathetically, I felt like such a quote unquote loser that I couldn't face that. And I stopped training because now I not only didn't win any prizes, I lost and felt my perception was I'm an epic loser.
Yeah.
And that's huge. And interestingly enough, that was my number one passion. And it never eluded me. It's never gone away. To this day, I have still, not a lot, but to me it doesn't seem like a lot, but I still have 4 horses. 4. Nobody even needs 1 horse. Just rent it or lease it, But I have 4 horses, and I've put down 5 horses. So over this, as an adult having horses, let's say, what is that, 9 horses? Wow. And so, plus 2 donkeys. They were feral donkeys that I rescued from the slaughterhouse, but they count, even though I couldn't ride them, but I could pet them and love them. But what we need to know here, right, is that, wow, it's get in touch with the passion and stay in touch with that passion. And that's why it's so worth it. Is what am I most passionate about? Well, evolving myself, SELF. My passion is that freedom, that ability to be powerful, happy, and joyful, regardless of any and all circumstances. That's why this is so worth it. And every now and then, when I don't see a prize every single day, I get a little discouraged. And then I got to wake myself up and go, wait a second, Karen, this is recognizable, symptomatic, is you are attached to the prize and rewards. And this is why, by the way, Dan, this is why 99% of the world's population will not sustain going for their ultimate dreams. Because based on brain science, when we can't touch, taste, smell, hear, feel the prize, then we quit. We quit.
Sure.
Can you relate to this?
Sure, because that's the way that I was always wired. If it didn't feel good at some level, then I didn't keep doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of a really short, sweet way to sum it up for me is if it didn't feel good, I didn't do it, for days, weeks, months, years. And so I think that's the why people don't go for their dreams, because, like you were saying, because you don't get a prize every day. It's delayed gratification, and sometimes not only delayed gratification, but the best things that people are most passionate about that really mean something are dreams. And to really go for a dream is really difficult to get past this built-in desire to have something that's tangible, that's showing up when you work towards your dream. And that's always held me back. It's always something that's in the way. And that's where just about everybody is. I believe that there's no doubt that that's the wiring that was imprinted in me at a very early age, and it's still there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't ever, in my experience anyway, it doesn't ever completely go away.
No, it won't.
It can only be overridden.
Yes.
But it doesn't go away. And yet, what's the alternative? The alternative is give up, and of course, it's linked to surviving. Because if I feel like I am putting this tremendous energy and time and effort into a dream, and also putting myself at risk of having enough to eat or having a place to live, if I fail in training for my dream, I have a real problem with continuing to train for that dream.
Yeah,
because
so
I don't want to have to put my actual physical survival at risk. That's something I really don't want to do.
Okay, and you don't ever have to.
I look at it as the survival part as being sort of the primitive prime directive.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, but here's the thing. Look, you just got to own that's your way of doing things. Mm-hmm. Okay? For me, it's not. Okay? Now, I want to say own it. Don't put yourself in a position where it's more stressful, more painful. You've got Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You got to hit your survival first. Never quit your day job and go for your dreams outside of that, Dan. Stop fighting it. Just own up to it, for God's sakes. Right? There's nothing wrong with that. And by the way, I highly recommend to do that, especially if you know That's how you tick. But just own it for yourself. It's not for everybody. Now, Jerry Seinfeld and I have a completely opposite take on that. And what that is Jerry, this is what I love about Jerry Seinfeld. He had only two options. He was either going to succeed as a stand-up comedian or die. That was it. And I'm like, amen, Jerry. That was me. I'm either going to live my passions most, if not my entire life, or I'd rather be dead. Now, that is not the majority. That is the minority. So far, so great for Jerry, for sure. So far, so great for me right now. Do you see this?
Yeah.
I am not the personality that's going to have a day job and go for my passion on the outside. That's just not my shtick. That's not how I roll. It's not my jam. Okay? Because for me, it's always been I'd rather be dead, which is a great motivator, by the way. You know? And for you, you don't ever have to do it. And I highly don't ever do it. I've told you that time and time again when you're in formal coaching. Never quit your day job. Yes, make sure you're able to feel not just that you're surviving, that you're comfortable with the roof over your head, the food on your table, right? The bills being paid. Make sure that's handled, because that's what makes you feel a sense of stability and structure. And that's a very powerful realization, right? And wisdom, because then you get confused like, oh, I got to quit everything and risk my survival. No, don't ever do that. And anyone who tells you to go do that, they're crazy from my point of view. Now, there are some people, there's one client of mine in particular who had the same mentality as me, and it was transform or die. So for that, when someone's able to only have two options like that, we are great subjective visionaries. Like, we have the ability to trust blindly, but that's rare. Again, it's the minority. So I love that you bring that up, Dan. So does that make sense?
Does which part make sense?
Well, the part about don't ever quit your day job. Hit your survival needs for sure. Own it. Be proud of it and go.
Well, yes, it does, and no, it doesn't.
Okay.
And the no, it doesn't part is it's clear that there's only so much power of commitment that is both spiritual and physical that can be applied to having a really big dream and then going for it. And if I have to take care of my survival first and foremost, the chances that I'm going to accomplish a really big dream that I have are very small. And I recognize that. And it is something that I've seen over and over again in you and other people, that you really do regularly involve involve yourself in putting yourself at risk in going for your dreams. And I don't regularly do that, not to the extent that you regularly do. Mm-hmm. Mm. And there's the rub, is because and because of all the years I've been in this work of transformational self-awareness work, I recognize that really getting a big payoff, and really having a dream that's really a passionate dream is much harder for me to even create and envision because of this structure that I have, as far as how I relate to the world and how I think and how my emotions relate to survival. So it's a very different conundrum for me than it is for you and Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that you can, that's just such a great, observation within yourself and way to be responsible for that and take ownership of it. And I will address it. Go ahead.
Yeah, and there's aspects to that really do bug me on an ongoing basis, even a chronic basis, and that is, and I know they cost me some energy in my life, and even physical toll on my body, and that is that when I am playing it safer than you and Jerry Seinfeld, which I generally almost always do, if not always, there's a cost to me of really resisting dreaming big.
Yeah.
And I do have dreams, and I resist them. Yep. And I steadily resist them, and they're blind spots then. They become blind spots because I'm resisting them. And so that is an effective blockade in my self-awareness, the evolution of my self-awareness. And I recognize that too.
Yeah, but I'm going to challenge you on one thing. It's blind to a point, but because you're so highly conscious, to a certain degree, it's never that blind. Your dreams, that is. Mm-hmm. So it's even worse to have the dreams and know that you're not going for them. That's worse. It's one thing. Yeah. So now that's the pickle.
Yeah, that's pickle. Yeah, it is. It's
and that's the conundrum you're talking about. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to call you on it because I have the answers, and I can tell you exactly why you're in this conundrum and this pickle. Which, by the way, you get that you're solely SOLELY responsible for. Yes?
Of course, yes.
Yeah, which is great. So number one, that you can admit it. Now, here's what we do know. Now, stay open. And let's do the reality check, not to criticize you or judge you in any way. But here's how this works. Okay? Is, Dan, you're not willing to train to the degree in which is required, right, to hop off the fence. In other words, you're not willing to train as an Olympian, if you will, metaphoric Olympian in the game of life, in the Olympics of life, to sustain risk. That's all that is. Can you see this?
Oh, I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. So you're going to get what you get, which is exactly the thing that I deal with is pain principle. It's more painful for me to not train than to train. For you right now, it's more painful for you to train. And that's why you're here. And just take responsibility for it.
Yeah, and you're speaking in the metaphorical here.
No, I'm speaking in reality here.
Okay, so you're speaking in the where here
of
being
not
where I am right now.
In your life, yes, and not fulfilling your big dreams, which you consciously have stated to me time and time again. And then they just go out of existence for you, but you're not blind to them.
Right.
You just forgot about them, or you just don't deal with them. You shelf it. You put it on the top shelf or the back shelf. Mm-hmm. It's more like you put it in a box in the basement. Okay? And so this is the reality check that I'm willing to face every day of my life. And do I like it? No. This is why I complain. And I don't complain now. I vent. Venting means get it all up and out. I'm entitled to expressing myself. I'm entitled to be like, blah, crapola, crap on a stick, crap, cheese and crap, crap and crackers, okay? Is that I'm willing to vent and get it all up and out, but I'm always, always, always dedicated and committed to a solution to getting the answers and to override it or transform it or transcend it, even better, transcend it. Okay? And I will never stop. But this whole training thing, Dan, you're in transformation, you're in the conversation, but you're still, right, in effect, kind of sitting on the sidelines, if you will, waiting to be called onto the field. And the only one who can call you onto the field is you. Right? Oh, and I should say you to then be willing, right, to hire the coach and team of coaches. You get this? To make sure that once you're on the field, you can sustain playing.
Yeah, because nobody can perform transformation on an ongoing basis all alone without having brilliant conversations.
Yeah, but it's more than brilliant conversations. Mm-hmm. Is having the facilitator.
That's right.
Right? Point out your blind spots, because you sure can't see them. And here's what happens with the brain. Easily, effortlessly, the brain is going to idle at fear, invisibly, unconsciously, to try to shut down and immediately instill the self-defense coping mechanisms. And that's why this is so radically challenging.
Yeah, it's confronting on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, see, the one thing we have to do, the one and only thing we have to do is stay in unfamiliarity to get to our dreams. That is where we have to go beyond the comfort zone, or what I say perceived safety zone, and take those risks. Now, here's the thing. This is the eternal, I'm going to say it, the eternal mindfuck, is that we must consciously live in the unfamiliar to be able to sustain the risks required to obtain our dreams, our endeavors, our goals, okay, our wishes. Now, on the other hand, by default, because of the fear mechanism in the human brain, the last thing our survival mechanism ever wants us to do is ever be in the unfamiliar. There's your conundrum. Do you understand this? And
yeah, definitely.
And this is what shuts us down. Mm-hmm. Right? So, Dan, this has been the same conversation, because right now, and for quite a long time, you have not been in formal coaching with any one coach, and definitely not me. And I've been your sole coach, getting you out of homelessness, right? Living in your car, and then being able to move back to your hometown of Texas. And you've done an extraordinary job. The thing about you is you never stop talking and staying in the conversation of transformation, which kudos to you. Okay?
Yeah, I did sleep in my car for about two and a half weeks.
Yeah. And you lost your home to foreclosure. The sheriff
that's right after that happened.
Yeah, exactly. And wow, I mean, extraordinary that you were able to, through coaching, right? When I first started this business, it was informal in that I was not a professional yet. And then when I turned professional, you came into formal coaching. And magic occurred. Magic. One magical accomplishment after another. You finally bought your dream bed at $4,000 or $5,000. You finally got a new car for yourself, right? Lived in all these great places. And now, here's the thing. This is not just you, Dan. So this is not me pointing fingers. This is every human being. To think that we can, quote unquote, live to our highest, fullest potential and live a extremely extraordinary, dream-filled life without coaches to help us with the blind spots, we're delusional. And I've had a team and continue to have a team of my own facilitators, mentors in different areas, right? And my biggest investment financially, time-wise, has always been this brain work and spiritual work, okay? And so do you get, Dan, that this is for everyone listening, including myself, the only way to sustain being able to risk and live in the unfamiliar is to make sure we have the best coaches possible, paid or not paid, right? But I'm honestly think paid is the best way to go, because you then solely, it's all about you. Solely, there's something magnificent about that. And let's ask every elite athlete on the planet and successful person on the planet, right? At some level, they are paying financially, spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, right, for their team of coaches, mentors, advisors over and over again. Can you see this, Dan?
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And when you're not willing to make that investment, you're going to get what you get, and just be responsible for that. You know, Dr. Pat Allen, cognitive therapist, relationship guru, ahead of her time, she always said, and I believe this to be true, don't complain about it. If either make a move, right, change it, shut up and change it, or love where you are. And if you can't love where you are, pay attention to that. And go back to the pain principle and weigh the pain of it.
Mm-hmm.
And Dan, this is where you are, and you will not budge, because you don't believe, like most human beings, that it's possible, because you have no reference points for it, and it's never been your reality. So you play it safe and stay where you are, because that is a sure bet. It was that moment, when we're talking about responsibility, Dan, it was that moment I could not handle this distinction of responsibility in the realm of transformation. I was like, I even called a friend and said, I don't get this responsibility thing. I can't connect to it, and I don't see any good. That's what I kept saying to her. Tell me what's good about responsibility. And she rattled off all these things. Well, you get to be a leader, you get to be, you get to call the shots, and you get to have the life you want. I'm like, blah, 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 blah. I couldn't, because I couldn't touch it, smell it, taste it, see it. I couldn't hold the teddy bear prize in my arms, right? And then feel like, oh God, okay, it's worth it to win the teddy bear. All right? And then months went by. I was in the same place and called her up again and said, okay, I can't handle this responsibility thing, but I'm not happy where I am. And then she just kept listening, and then I figured it out. All of a sudden, it dawned on me. Oh my God. Dan, it wasn't that I had to touch the prize in front of me. What made me move and continues to make me move and stay in sustainable risk-taking is that, once again, I looked backwards at my life and weighed the cost. And as I looked backwards at my life, okay, yeah, it was scary and I couldn't see it, taste it, touch it, smell it, feel it in front of me. But what I could taste, test, smell, hear, feel was that the way I had been doing things never worked. And I said, I'd rather be dead than live the life I had been living. And bear in mind, I was a super overachiever. That's another point I have to make, is because of my experiences in achieving almost everything I set out to achieve in my life, none of it ever made me happy underneath it all and gave me this sense of self-freedom and fulfillment and peace within my heart, soul, and core being. So I had that experience to draw upon, knowing that no matter how much I accomplish, how much money I have in the bank, and I've always succeeded in every area, no matter how many men I was dating, no matter how many marriage proposals, none of it worked. I still had this gnawing emptiness, darkness, and feeling of loneliness. There was zero freedom and only emotional imprisonment. And it got worse over time. The more I achieved, the emptier I felt inside. So having that experience and connecting to that is so powerful. So when I look backwards and said, I'd rather be dead because doing what I was doing never worked, that's what catapulted me into the ability to take the risk into the unfamiliar. Because the one thing I knew without a shadow of a doubt, that if I leaped into the unfamiliar, I'd at least have a chance of getting what I wanted. And that's what did it for me. So go ahead, Dan, keep doing it your way, as you, not as Dan, the brilliant you, as the default mechanism, human being with a human brain, right? This is what you have to weigh. And then over time, the only thing that's really going to make you move is crisis or that pain quotient, because that's usually how it's done. Now, we highly suggest you don't wait till that. I absolutely say no, don't wait. But just like me, I'm stubborn, is that I had to hit bottom first to go, okay, message received. And you might have to do that for yourself too. So what are you hearing in all this, Dan? Because this is profound, brilliant stuff.
Well, I think the whole aspect of what motivates anyone, myself, and certainly I'm speaking primarily
just talk about
myself.
Yourself. Yeah.
What motivates me is having a feeling of being right about what I'm doing. And that isn't necessarily, I recognize that isn't necessarily a powerful way to be.
Brilliant, Dan. Awesome.
As a matter of fact, it's strictly limiting.
Yeah.
And it's been an operating under the surface and in view, especially in the last 8 or 9 years, way of being that I've had since early childhood. Being a good boy, doing what I'm supposed to do, blah, blah. Being my motivation, being a good, when I was older and responsible for having my own life and being independent, I still stuck with a field of work that felt like it was what I was supposed to be doing, as opposed to anything I was truly passionate or satisfied with or felt like there was any real growth.
Okay, but stick to the matter at hand, because that's irrelevant. Okay, what's relevant is what I've been talking about all along, is the pain principle. So say more about how it's been limiting for you to not venture out and sustain risk and the unfamiliar. Right.
Well, I keep sabotaging myself, and I realized, looking back on my life before I was involved in any transformational work, the pain of putting myself at risk always led to me sabotaging really going for my dreams very consistently. It even sabotaged me being married, because I just chose someone who by default chose me.
Right.
And it wasn't that I had a dream for a woman with those particular characteristics. She was who showed up.
Yeah. Okay. But
and that was self-sabotage, because we were a very poor match, and we didn't communicate in the beginning, and it didn't work out, and it was tragic, actually, in how I handled it afterwards.
Okay, but again, you got to look right now at your life and see where you are within the pain principle, Dan. Focus on that, because you're talking about the past and you're just going to repeat it over and over. Once it's hardwired in, it's there forever.
Yeah, the pain principle is ever present.
I know, but weigh the pain. Look at your life right now, the dreams that you have, okay? What feels more painful? To go and take risks into the unfamiliar and do what you got to do and make that investment or the pain of living your life the way it is?
Well, it's a mix. To a certain extent, I'm taking risks and doing the unfamiliar.
Okay, but that again.
But it's not something I'm truly passionate about. It's just something that I determined was a rational thing for me to do. That is a little bit risky because it's new.
Okay, but you're not answering the question. Stay with the question. Okay, so let's just say this. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, right, the highest pain, staying where you are, what number would you put? Living your life right now.
10 being the worst.
Mm-hmm.
7 or 8.
Okay, good. And now get in touch with the pain of taking those risks and making the investment for yourself, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, financially, physically.
Well, that would be a 10.
Oh, okay. So that's excellent. It's more painful for you to make the investment for yourself.
Yeah,
So you're not ready. You're not ready.
Put myself at great risk right now, more than I am.
Yeah.
I'd be scared out of my mind.
Okay, so then you're clearly not ready, and there's nothing wrong there. But the good news is you're getting closer.
Yeah.
Okay? Mm-hmm. Now here's the thing. You talked about it earlier, and I'm going to point it out in your favor. You know, knowing that you've taken on a new job is not your passion, but it is survival. Okay? Is that you got to get that handled to meet your survival needs. Like, stop trying to shortcut and skip over your ability to pay your bills, have a roof over your head, and food on your table that you want to eat. Does that make sense?
Stop trying to shortcut and gloss over my need to do that.
Yes, because that's what you're doing, because I already know your history. What I'm saying is you just started a new job in a different field. It's not your passion, which you just stated, but you also stated earlier your need to survive and make sure you have money coming in to pay your bills. So cut yourself a break and get this job stabilized, right? Live in the now, in the present, so that you have a really strong foundation, right, to cover yourself as you take leaps of faith and risk. Don't quit your day job, and that's what it takes. You got to have the day job, right, and have stability for the most amount of power to be able to do the rest of your stuff on the outside. The trick is staying highly motivated and inspired to do a little bit on the outside part, but you're not even there yet. What I'm saying is, you know, really look at how your perceptions and reframe that you're just getting proficient at a new career, not your passion, but it's something you enjoy and that interests you, and get that stabilized so that the income is coming in and that you can take a breather and then work on the other stuff and make the investment, right, to pursue the next thing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Because you're resisting just meeting your survival, which you just said you needed to do. Do you understand that you're just contradicting yourself? So with the silence, what's getting triggered now, Dan?
Well, I'm just processing here where I contradicted myself about survival.
Yeah.
Because this current job that I have is partially about survival and partially about doing something that's more in alignment with who I'm choosing to be.
Great.
So it's a little of both.
Okay.
And yes, there's a pain principle also, because the pay is not as good as my formal last, field.
Yep.
And so it's a mixed bag of doing, this job is a mixed bag. It's a little of both.
Yeah, but be careful here, because when you were getting paid more, you had other costs.
Oh, yeah.
So
definitely.
it's you understand that it's never going to be perfect. There's always a cost either way. That's why the pain principle is so great. Right? It was more, even though you were making more money in your previous job as a machinist, it was way more painful for you to keep doing that job. You're on your feet all day, your shoes, right? You had to worry about your feet.
For a lot more than those physical reasons, too.
Yeah. Okay. And then the extra money that you were making, bear in mind, then you had to take that and go to the chiropractor more often and the doctor more often. Do you see how it weighs itself? So be very careful there. You got to weigh,
Sure.
okay? But yet you're in the inquiry. There's a couple things you got to focus on. Right? Staying present and stabilizing yourself, not trying to shortcut it, and get yourself to a point, right, where you're proficient and you can do your day job and then free yourself up to then pursue the next dream.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to keep yourself in this constant self-sabotaging cycle.
Yeah, and what you just said, keeping the job and moving and being for stability, paying the bills, and also that have me feel freer to pursue my dreams.
Mm-hmm.
That is my dream. That's my current dream, is to have that situation.
Perfect.
And that's what I'm moving towards.
Yeah. Okay. So congratulations. Again, take responsibility for yourself and your life where it is in this moment, for all that it is and all that it is not. Okay? And reframe your perceptions to where you can feel good about it. Otherwise, you lose power. And if you don't do that, then you're going to be irresponsible. And when we're irresponsible, we have no power to call the shots. We have no way to get what we want. If we rely on anything outside of ourselves, other than the faith and belief in the God or the divine, supernatural powers that be, right, the best we can do, and I'm only talking through experience, is to have self-responsibility. 100%, that gives us the sustainable power to continue to call the shots and recreate, reinvent, and keep having the magic and miracles roll in based on what didn't work. I'm going to tell you right here, right now, for me, this is the way it's working, because now I have it all. I get to create all the things that I want, and the most important thing, feel a sense of fulfillment, peace, and happiness from within, which was always missing for me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, Dan, this is confronting. I can tell by your energy, a little background noise, energetically, right? There's some resistance getting sparked. But we're about to come to a close because this is already an hour, 13 minutes here, right? So in closing, this is great because this is the inquiry. This is the uncomfortableness. This is the risk-taking, Dan, that you're actually doing right now. We didn't know this was going to go this way. We were just going to have a podcast conversation.
Right.
But it's great that you're in the inquiry of it and taking it on. Fantastic. This is the unfamiliar. This is the risk that most people on the planet will never, ever, ever, ever risk. You get that?
Absolutely. See it all the time.
Yeah. So just talk about yourself. For right now, where are you?
Well, I'm in a space of that. I am moving. I'm not regressing and shying away from what it is that's important to me. I am moving in a direction that serves me.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm acknowledging myself for that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a case of the paradigm of having an overriding single dream or dying trying right now. But that's where I am. I'm not in that realm of going for an overriding purpose and dream or dying trying. I'm going at it in a less direct, slower way. And
yeah,
that's fine, and that's where I am.
Exactly.
And it's a more powerful and more peaceful place than I was in for the first 55 plus years of my life.
Exactly. And stop comparing yourself to anyone else. It's your journey, your path. Fucking own it. Hashtag own it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, of course, yes.
Right? And then
because comparing to someone else doesn't serve any purpose except for the brain's viruses to take me down.
Yeah. Okay? And so you don't want to compare, you want to take ownership, and then, be conscious to whether you're complaining about it or feeling sorry for yourself or going into martyr victim. And you know me, I'm going to call you on it. Right? Just like you can call me on it. But I usually call myself on it. Like the moment I hear myself speaking into martyr victim, I'm like, oh God, shit it to myself, you see? Is that if it's gnawing at you and it's bringing you down too much and you're not doing something about it, I don't want to hear about it, nor does anyone else. And by the way, that's extremely repelling, and that's where it's a big turn off for everybody, including myself. You get that?
Absolutely. It certainly is a big turn off. And,
yep.
And there's people that have been in my life that I have shut off from my life for that reason, because it was so consistent that that's the only way they seem to know how to be. And so there's been a constructive responsibility on my part to realize that, and that it was okay if I didn't interact. So
yeah,
there's instances where that is a pragmatic way to take responsibility for my own life.
Yeah.
And I've done so in the recent years.
Okay, so it's all about choice. Without putting anyone down or judging or criticizing, and this is big for me, right, is let people go at their own pace, and if they're ready, great. If they're not, great. The one thing I do know is I don't do well with people who talk, and then don't follow up with action at a certain point and keep complaining about it, or, and keep themselves in this perpetual victim martyr cycle. That doesn't work for me. So, I wish you all the best. Good luck with all of that. And no, I don't really want to hang out with those people. I already have enough problems with myself. Like, why would I want to hang out with people not taking responsibility for their lives? No thanks. Right? You see that? And so that's what it is for me. Ain't gonna lie about it. Okay? And it's a huge order, and it does matter. The people we surround ourselves with matters. So that's something, and Dan, that's the risk too. I mean, yeah, we're friends. And if I call you on it, if you're listening, that's great. But after a certain point, that's always a risk. And I always put that up front. And that's something we have to weigh too. I do, and every human being. If, disclaimer, if you really want self-freedom and the ability to navigate through life happily, healthily, powerfully, right, regardless of any and all circumstances. That's what we're talking about here. So, Dan, thanks for sharing. Any last words of wisdom for yourself that you could share that might be helpful to somebody listening?
Well, first thing is this has been over an hour, so if you are listening still and you've been listening the whole time, you are freaking awesome.
Yeah, good one.
Because this was not easy to listen to, especially if you're somebody who has not been in transformational work to any great degree or at all. It's amazing that you're still here with us on this call. So acknowledge yourself for being an extraordinary human being. Secondly, Karen, the way that you started this was so awesome. This call was so awesome.
Thanks.
and it was just what was the space you were in this morning, and you just spoke it. Mm-hmm. And that's the power of, for those of you listening, I'm speaking to, that's the power of this whole line of inquiry into life, this whole transformational line of inquiry and self-awareness is it exists in the conversation, and then it can really transform life.
Yeah.
And it's done so for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And me too.
And mine started in 2008, and it has been, or was it 2009? I think it was 2009.
Uh-huh.
And it has been had some really difficult things that I've gone through, but I wouldn't trade any of them. I wouldn't trade anything I've been through for anything else. It's all been so gratifying and gotten me into a space that I never dreamed when I was younger than 55. I never dreamed I could be in a space of where I am now, as far as my overall emotional peace, my overall happiness, and my overall belief in myself and my belief in life.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's really what this is about. I wouldn't
That's
trade
right.
it for the world either, because it gave me the very thing that I'd searched for my whole life. Number one, my purpose, and this number two, happiness, this ability to create happiness anytime, any place, anywhere, under any circumstance, right? And this sense of fulfillment and a meaningful life, which that's what matters to me, right? And the sense of inner peace, but this not being at the effect of my feelings, my thoughts, my circumstances. Oh my God, that has been the best thing ever. Like frickin' # best thing ever. Now, I'm going to leave everyone with this because it really rings true. I was my own worst best case study ever. Suicidal, came from money, grew up wealthy, was a debutante, came out the Waldorf Astoria in New York City with duchesses and royalty and you know, the governor's daughter, blah, blah, blah. Okay? And so, you know, yet I was depressed my entire life. No matter how much I had, no matter what I accomplished, I was still depressed and suicidal over time. Like to the point where it never kept working. The more I achieved, the more success I acquired, the more money I made, the more marriage proposals, I was even emptier and lonelier and so distraught that suicide seemed like my only option. 2008, I attempt suicide. Clearly I failed, yet another failure, which is a great way to fail. But that's the thing that got me where I am today, saying that I was stubborn. I thought I knew everything. And it was when, number one, I learned what I didn't know that I never thought to look for and couldn't see. When I went and trained for something new that was completely unfamiliar, number one, that was the biggest thing that set me free. And another thing that set me free is when the very thing I did not want to hear from coaches, advisors, mentors, the very thing, when you said, Dan, this was a painful podcast to listen to, it was all of that painful crap that I was resisting, didn't want to hear, didn't even care to pay attention to. All of that stuff was the number one thing that set me free. And it was the stuff that I never wanted to hear that was the only thing I heard that made the difference in my life. So that's what I want to leave everybody with, was the stuff that I kept poo-pooing and not wanting to hear, and didn't even know that I didn't want to hear it, but it was too confronting. It was too in my face, was everything that I absolutely needed to hear if I really wanted everything I said I wanted. And it reaped the results that mattered to me. Does that make sense, Dan? Did you get that? That's huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was a sounds like it was a set of wake-up calls.
Yep.
That you couldn't have gotten any other way.
Uh-huh. And
yeah.
The most confronting stuff that came toward me in my self-improvement, self-development, self-help, self-transformation, self-evolution, all that stuff that came toward me, it was so confronting. The best way to handle it was I confronted it. I actually walked right toward it, looked it in the eye, faced it, broke down hard, and would do that time and time again. And it trained me to continue to do it time and time again, because always on the other side was an unimaginable, beyond my wildest dreams, right? Miraculous results. Like it got me the very thing the only thing I've been searching for. That's why it was so worth it. I couldn't even believe, it was unfathomable to think that to do all this and confront the unconfrontable, that it would absolutely bring me the most magic in my life. Who frickin' knew? And that's why I keep doing it, because I know on the other side is something so inexplicable, so divine, so delicious, scrumptious, absolutely dreamy. Right? On the other side, that's why I keep going. Otherwise, forget it. Why would I even bother? I would be out a long time ago.
Right.
Okay? So that said, thank you so much for listening. This was one of my favorite podcasts because it was hashtag real, raw, relatable. And Dan, thank you for being like such an incredible listener, as I always say. But thank you for being here and for really exposing yourself, being so transparent and being willing to admit to what you're going through, you know, and to share from the truest of authenticity, right, within yourself is so inspiring. It is so relatable, and it ripple effects out to help so many other people, other human beings on the planet. And I can't thank you enough for your courage, your wherewithal, and your brilliance. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. And I want to say one more little short thing to anyone who's listening.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with you, and everybody has stuff they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody has stuff that they don't know that are blind spots.
Yeah.
And this work, this transformational work, is a way to address those things that you've never been able to see or deal with because you can't see them. So accept that you are perfect as you are, and you can stay the way you are, and there's nothing wrong with that, or accept that there is something that you can do, and that's to engage in this kind of work, this kind of transformational work. And that's the encouragement I'd like to give anybody who's with us. Yeah,
thank you for that. And, my hashtag today is confront the unconfrontable and hashtag unconditionally love yourself for where you are and where you're not.
That's right.
Okay, and then whatever happens, happens, and we wish you all the best, right? And if you are interested in digging deep, delving into your your mind, your unconscious mind, your subconscious mind, please reach out to me, KarenLoveLee@gmail, KarenLoveLee.com, hashtag KarenLoveLee. You know, get with me. I'd love to hear from you. And until next time, woo! Pow, pow! Responsibility, integrity, confront the unconfrontable, love yourself unconditionally. You are magnificent. You are brilliant. Own your genius. I mean, my God, there are so many geniuses in this world. And I'm saying, I know if you're listening, you are undoubtedly a genius. Keep listening, keep digging deep, and share your greatness with us because we'd love to hear from you. All right, that said, until next time, pow pow, Dan, and you're spectacular. Thank you.